With Jane Paley, and no, first we consulted, I think, with Jack's spiritual parents who are in the audience, Bill and Bunny Tucker, and they referred us to Jane. We talked to Jane, and Jack wanted to know who was the best therapist in the country, because that's what we wanted for our marriage. So anyhow, I have to make all that short. We did go to therapy, and one day as I was sitting in a group therapy experience, it was the equivalent of baptism by fire, nothing from my background or culture had prepared me for such an event. Some of you appreciate that more than others. A miracle for me happened. The miracle was that I sat there and watched people making fundamental, core level change in themselves. And it was so exciting that I forgot what I was there for, to improve on this thing. And I remember it was like a conversion experience. I remember saying, that's what I really want to do. This is exciting, to change and to be able to be a catalyst for change. This is what I could get excited about. So then I spent some years, it was hard to admit to the family that I was going to change my career completely. It took me a number of years to do that, but I did, and it has been a privilege. It has been a privilege to do this work. I'm now a marriage and family therapist. The biggest privilege in this work is to invite people, to urge people, to challenge people, to give up, to unburden themselves from the barriers that keep them from that divine center, from that miraculous core, that empowering divinity that's inside each of us. It's a promise. We know that. Intellectually, we have all read that. I have 19 passages here I could share with you. I won't, because we don't have time. We know it's there. But just like Jan said, occasionally we need a way to get there. And this is what therapy for me was. It's a tool, it's a way, and it's the true merging of science and religion. Of the 100 things I have here I want to share with you, I did pray to Baha'u'llah that I let go of important and I share with you the most important, at least of what is in my heart. I have seen a dichotomous attitude, again, that Jan was touching on, of either or. You're either a good Baha'i and you shouldn't need anything else, or you're doing this other stuff. I wish for us to give that up. Baha'u'llah says that he has created everything for our enjoyment and for our benefit. We are entitled to use our soul, our mind, our body, everything in the service of the cause. Therapy is a tool among many to get us there maybe a little faster. I have heard friends talk about, we know that this is an inexact science. The House of Justice says so, the Guardian says so. But we don't abandon the baby with the bathwater. It is a science. Let's explore it. It's a tool. There are charlatans in the field. Do you stop going to the doctors because they are charlatan surgeons? No, you investigate. Independent investigation of truth in that area as well. Why? Because we have a spiritual battle in front of us. Why? Because I don't care what culture we come from, we have things that burden us down, that hold our wings down, that don't allow us to start flapping let alone soar. And I want to say that because there is no culture on earth where the basic spiritual principles brought by Baha'u'llah have been a practiced reality, I don't care where we come from. We all are, or ought to be, recovering from something. Earlier I said about my background, and another issue that popped into my head that I will say something about is sometimes I think even within the faith we mistake unity with uniformity and forget the mandate is for unity in diversity. Abdu'l-Baha did not say that the tulips have to act like the roses and the roses like the pansies and the pansies like the daisies. He said the beauty of the garden is in the variety of these flowers coming together. Or the pancreas starting to act like the liver doesn't exactly help me. So there is something in each of our backgrounds to be proud of that is a strength to be brought to this table. We should not invite ourselves or invite others to give those up. I think in this family we need to recognize, understand, appreciate, and celebrate differentness. Otherwise, when we act like and we claim that color blindness, let's say, is a virtue, in essence, I'm saying who you are doesn't matter. Let's all pretend that you're like me. That's what I'm saying. That's what the dominant culture is saying. I have an African-American friend with whom I do training, and he says sometimes in other settings, do you know how much of me you would have to miss if you're colorblind? The very essence, what I bring, the richness that I bring, would be overlooked. So, who God says we are potentially, I encourage us to look at that, and I'll just share maybe one or more two things. Man should know his self and recognize that which leadeth unto loftiness or baseness, to shame or to honor, to affluence or to poverty. When one is released from the prison of self, that is indeed freedom, for self is the greatest prison. And for those of us who come from backgrounds where we want to feel guilty and beat on ourselves, we always see that we equate ignorance of self with selflessness. There is a big difference. I don't think anywhere in the writings we have been invited not to have a self in the sense of not loving, accepting, understanding that this too is a creation of God. That I have to understand it, love it. Then if I want to offer it up to a greater love, my love for God, that's acceptable. Not when I bring my tired, boring, lifeless self and say, Baha'u'llah, here I am, take me. My fantasy is Baha'u'llah says, go get a life. Then come back. Then you bring your alive, energized, loving self. And if you want to offer yourself up, we'll take you. It is up to us, with meticulous attention, loving attention, to discover how we have been handicapped from our culture, from our gender, from our race, ethnicity, as well as bringing the wonderful positive points. I am proud of my heritage. I love being a fifth-generation Baha'i. I love being from Qazvin, the town of Tahirih. Does it entitle me to anything? Absolutely not. Does it exempt me from anything? Thank God, no. Does it make me unique in some ways? Yes, it does. And I have to be proud of those uniquenesses so I can bring them to you, so I can offer them to you. Recently, on a trip to Australia, 2 years ago, I visited my aunt who is 85 years old now, and who thanks to the Iranian Revolution, has been thrown over in Australia. I found out a wonderful, for me, delicious fact about my background. And I'm so proud of that. I discovered that my maternal grandmother, who was a prominent woman in Qazvin, dressed as, or disguised herself as a washwoman while Tahirih was under house arrest in her father's house. And she would take news from Baha'u'llah and from the Babi community to Tahirih. That just thrilled me. Do I like sharing that with you? You betcha. What does it do for me? I hope it encourages me to be a terror of veils, of vain imaginings in myself every day. It's not a matter of, am I sexist, racist, nationalist, classist? It's not that. That's not the question. The question to me is, how did my racism, sexism, whatever, pick one, manifest itself this morning? How did I do it? As a woman who suffers from internalized oppression, we all do. If you're denying it, you're denying it, that's all. How did I manifest that this morning? That's the question. And therefore, how can I take another baby step, another little flap of the wing, to free myself a little bit in the next transaction? I will share with you, even though we didn't quite agree to do this either.
What can I say? What can I say?
Very little. I share with you, and in part, I am treating you like my family, as you realize. I am exposing myself to you. Bani Tucker will appreciate that joke. To let you know we are in this struggle together. When we were given this 45-minute slot to share together, it was very important to me for me to have more time than Jack. Why? I don't like to hog the air. I'm not that egotistical that I think what I have to say is more important than what he has to say. I did it because symbolically, and for me, concretely, it is important because as women, we have lost our voices. Half of humanity still does not have her true voice, my friends. We have to take active, bold steps sometimes symbolic, sometimes real, to gain that voice. Because it's not just women who suffer. It is the birth of humanity that suffers. And I know we are overlapping all over each other's topics. I'm looking at Judge Nelson, who will be speaking on the topic. But what comes to mind as the bird of humanity, which is supposed to soar with these beautifully, equally equipped wings, is that we have both genders have been erroneously defined. We have the male wing that is over-functioning, flapping all over the place.
That was not my bird. My bird was different.
Thinking that it can make the bird fly by itself. We have the female wing that is under-flapping because it has lost recognition of its own potential. Occasionally it will do something and then say, I was probably wrong anyhow. And there's plenty of evidence in the culture that will tell her, that will tell me, yes, you were wrong anyhow. So we have to consciously, faith is conscious knowledge. We can't afford to be blissfully ignorant. If there was ever anything blissful about it, this is not the day, this is not the time. We have to wake up with every single one of these principles. We have to clean house, and it's not a have to in the sense of should, and it feels yucky. It's that it's a privilege. It's that Baha'u'llah said he was not bringing just a mere code of laws, didn't he? He said he was unsealing the choicest wine. Do we deserve to drink? Are we going to drink? Or are we just going to tell others we have this wonderful wine? I always regret that I never got to drink. There are a few things you kind of feel deprived of, you know. It feels so elegant to have a wine glass. I don't know. But this is our chance. And not to do that is to deprive ourselves of this wonderful, wonderful, glorious adventure, which is the process of transformation, which is believing, daring, risking to believe that indeed inside each of us there is a pearl, there is an emerald, there is a ruby, there is a bird, and that until and unless I am willing to investigate the time, the energy, to polish off this jewel in the rough, and to believe that when I do that, I will get to a gem one of these days. That's the element of faith. Then we are depriving ourselves of what it is we are saying we want to offer humanity. And the other point is, how dare we offer this to humanity if we have not applied it to ourselves? So choose whatever works for you. If you want to take the choice wine attitude, go for it. If you want to say, how dare you not do it, go for that. One way or the other, however, let's do attend to ourselves. And if you are inclined to think that noticing on yourself is spending time on yourself is a waste of time, that we got to go teach, again, that dichotomous attitude. Please know, if you wanted to do nothing but to teach, let's just say you just don't have a self, don't have a marriage, don't have kids, you just want to teach. Still, you're talking about an instrument, yeah? I am the instrument for teaching. So the prescription is still the same. It behooves me to know who I am, what I am, so I won't inflict myself on others in the way of teaching. Inflict myself on my brothers, Baha'i brothers and sisters, because I'm so without self that I have a transformation plan for everybody in this room. Right? So one of the other felicitous outcomes of focusing on myself and my own personal transformation is that I stay out of other people's business, which is their own privilege. It's a God-given responsibility and privilege to each soul to become. It's not my business how he becomes, though I remind him occasionally. Helpful hints. No, that is part of the partnership and marriage, is to be each other's spiritual tutors, but I am not to take on his task of growth and development before mine. So, however, let's just say you still want to teach. That's great. I will finish with this passage from The Guardian, which I know you're all familiar with. No, I must share this one with you too. When I first found this as a therapist, it was such a relief to me. I love the writings of The Guardians for its practicality. You know, the writings of Baha'u'llah are like the overarching umbrella, and anyhow, The Guardian gets to the nitty-gritty. Oh, because we wrote letters and asked and gave our predicaments. He says there is a difference between character and faith. It is often hard to accept this fact and put up with it. But the fact remains that a person may believe in and love the cause, even to being ready to die for it, and yet not have a good personal character or possess traits at variance with the teachings. We should try to change, to let the power of God help recreate us and make us true Baha'is in deed as well as in belief. But sometimes the process is slow. Sometimes it never happens because the individual does not try hard enough. But these things cause us suffering and are a test to us. Not only they are a test to us, they are a test, unfortunately, to our other family members. So to the degree, this is one way I define detachment. Detachment to me is not, again, not having a self. It is to be detached enough from this self so I can step outside of myself and to appraise, really, this instrument of God, this soul lovingly created by God, and see her strengths and see her weaknesses and see what I want to do about it. That to me is true detachment. For me to, again, put the blinders and not see my problems, that's the easy way out. One more from The Guardian. I'm sorry. I love this. Baha'is should seek to be many-sided, normal, and well-balanced. Mentally and spiritually. We must not give the impression of being fanatics, but at the same time, we must live up to our principles. I invite us to be good to ourselves. There is no scarcity of anything. It has all been put here for our enjoyment. Let's use each other. Let's use the family. Let's help each other flap the wings so that we can soar real fast. Thank you.
The next part of our program calls for a slide program by Covey Cantville, and it has down here, introduce Covey Cantville. What can I say about Covey Cantville? Except that here's Covey.
Good afternoon, good morning, almost. In keeping with what Fafar said about the women needing some upliftment, as far as I'll try and keep with a famous quote from my wife that's blessed is the brief, they'll be invited back. So I was asked to do a presentation on the Ark project, and we have a really great slide presentation for you. And I thought with a number of Baha'i guests, new Baha'is, friends, families, and visitors, that it might be a good idea just to do a short overview on what is the Ark. Because someone had said to me, are we building a boat? What are we doing? So what the Ark is, as far as we are establishing the administrative center of the faith in God's holy mountain, which is Mount Carmel, which is located on the mountain in the port city of Haifa, Israel. As far as the current status from a standpoint of buildings, has the Shrine of the Bab, the Archives Building, the Universal House of Justice, the seat, and you'll see in the slides the construction on both sides, the left and right side, in the slides of the Universal House of Justice, where we have begun construction, which we will ultimately end up completing the Ark with the other three buildings, the Center for the Sacred Text, the International Teaching Center, and the International Baha'i Library. The other thing, as far as the monument gardens, where Baha'u'llah's family, his wife, and most of his children are buried, as far as in Mount Carmel. As far as the terraces, there will be, the Shrine of the Bab is the one with the gold dome superstructure. There will be 9 terraces above and 9 terraces below. And I think a lot of times you think of a mountain, you think of some of the mountains in the States where you have trees or it's just this open, vast space. I think we've got some shots that'll give you a real good idea, if you've never been there, that we're talking about a mountain that's been developed all around. It's just the greenery and the lushness of the gardens just jumps out at you with all the building and everything that's around. But the history of the faith from the very beginning with Baha'u'llah, who had gone to Mount Carmel and talked to Abdul-Baha specifically about building the Shrine of the Bab to inter the remains of the Bab, who was a prophet in his own right. And he revealed the tablets of Carmel, which really was the charter for the world center, and to create the metropolis of the kingdom of God on earth. And Abdul-Baha did create the Shrine of the Bab, and Shoghi Effendi finished the gold superdome structure that we're all used to seeing. It just sticks out from the mountain. But the Ark has so much more significance than just the physical buildings that we're building. As far as really we're talking about the Ark, ultimately our purpose is the spiritualization and salvation of mankind. That we're establishing the kingdom of God on earth. As far as we're trying to spiritualize the entire planet. That there is an analogy between Noah's Ark and this Ark, in that man is drowning in a sea of tribulation. And once again, God has come through Baha'u'llah and given him the message to really cure the ills which afflict society today. And that there's always been that relationship between this world and the other world, and the spiritual significance and the energies released when a manifestation comes into the world. Well, Baha'is believe the same thing, is on the completion of this Ark, that spiritual energies will be released. And we're in the process. It's all simultaneously kind of involved with 2 other processes, that being the lesser peace, which is happening outside the faith, and the maturation or the evolution of Baha'i institutions, local and national. And we're just embarking on a time where we have incredible needs and opportunities. And we are the generation which is charged with bringing about peace. That we know that peace is not only possible, but it's inevitable. And that some of the gardens and the construction and everything that you see really points out significantly the emergence of Baha'u'llah's faith from obscurity. It also signifies these are the institutions which will ultimately preserve justice and unity in the world. That these terraces are symbolic in this construction of the transformation which is destined to occur both in the hearts of the people of the world